Oathbreaker is a 60 card format quite similar to Commander. Instead of choosing a legendary creature like in Commander, you choose a Planeswalker to serve as your Oathbreaker, and alongside of that Planeswalker, an instant or sorcery spell which will serve as that Planeswalker's signature spell. That spell may only be cast while you control your Oathbreaker, and just like in Commander, both your Oathbreaker and that signature spell will cost 2 generic mana more for each subsequent time you cast them from the command zone. The remainder of your deck is 58 cards within the color identity set forth by your Oathbreaker. There is a list of cards banned in the format, which I will link to in the description of this video. Your life total begins at 20, and it is indeed a multiplayer format. In this video, we are going to discuss one of my favorite Oathbreaker decks. Vivien, Champion of the Wilds, is 2 and a green for a 4 loyalty Vivien Planeswalker. She has a static ability that lets you cast creature spells as though they had flash. She has a +1 that gives up to 1 target creature vigilance and reach. She has a -2 that lets you look at the top 3 cards of your library, you exile 1, face down, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you can look at it at any time, and you can cast it if it's a creature spell. Our signature spell is Worldly Tutor, a 1 green mana instant that lets us search our library for a creature, reveal it, shuffle, and then put that creature on top. While this card does synergize quite nicely with Vivien's -2, letting us follow up by exiling that creature we tutored for, it is largely used in this deck to search for our win conditions. This deck is based on the Yeva Draw-Grow cEDH deck, using a similar playstyle and win condition. Our main goal is to resolve the Shaman of Forgotten Ways' ability on the stack after ensuring our opponents have no creatures in play to win the game. Vivien's static ability is really the relevant text here, giving our creatures flash as Yeva would do in the cEDH equivalent, allows us to utilize them as responses for our opponents' moves, and letting us win basically at instant speed. The deck features a number of infinite loops, letting us repeat a sequence of bouncing, recasting, tapping, and untapping to generate infinite mana and utilize it for our win conditions. We do also run a few alternative options to win should the Shaman line be disrupted. Let's start off with the means to make infinite mana. The card that's very critical in all of this is called Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. This card is 3 and 2 green for an elemental creature whose power and toughness are both equal to the number of lands we control. While it's in play, all of our creatures are forest lands in addition to their other types. We will want to have out a mana dork that can produce more than 1 mana, such as the Circle of Dreams Druid, Karametra's Acolyte, or the Priest of Titania. While Ashaya is in play, these do count as forests. We are also using Kurian Ranger in this combo, a 1 green mana elf ranger. You can return a forest you control to its owner's hand to untap target creature. We will start by tapping our dork for at least 2 mana. Depending on the circumstances, Kurian Ranger may need to already be in play to generate that quantity of mana. We then bounce the Kurian Ranger to our hand as the cost to use its ability, since Ashaya will count it as a forest land. This untaps the mana dork at resolution. We can then use one of the green mana that we've produced to recast the Ranger, and because this is now considered a new instance of the Ranger, it will reset the once per turn clause that its ability has. Because it will retrain at least 1 green mana floating from the mana dork, we can then do this infinitely to generate infinite green mana. Once we've gotten infinite mana, we have a number of routes to victory. We run a number of creature tutors aside from our signature spell. Eldritch Evolution is 1 and 2 green for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast it, we must sacrifice a creature. We then tutor for a creature card with a mana value of X or less, where X is 2 plus the sacrificed creature's mana value. That creature goes to the battlefield. Green Sun Zenith is X and 1 green for a sorcery. We tutor for a creature with mana value X or less and it goes to the battlefield. Green Sun Zenith gets shuffled back into the library. Court of Calling is X and 3 green with Convoke. This lets you tutor for a creature card with mana value X and it goes to the battlefield. Survival of the Fittest and Fauna Shaman are each 1 and 1 green for an enchantment and a creature respectively. That lets you pay 1 green, choose and discard a creature to tutor for a creature that goes to your hand. The Fauna Shaman has to tap as part of its cost, restricting it to once per turn, but the two serve a similar role in the deck. The goal of these tutors is to grab up our combo pieces should we not already have them in hand. Speaking of, let's discuss them. Kogla the Titan Ape is one of our key pieces to help set up our endgame. Kogla is a 7/6 ape for 3 and 3 green. When he enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Whenever he attacks, you destroy target artifact or enchantment the defending player controls. You can also pay 1 and 1 green, return target human you control to its owner's hand. Kogla gains indestructible until the end of turn. We want to use that ETB ability multiple times to help clear our opponent's field of creatures by bouncing Kogla and recasting it infinite times. To do this, we have Temur Sabertooth, which costs 2 and 2 green for a 4/3 cat. You may pay 1 and 1 green to bounce target creature to your hand to give Tamer Sabertooth indestructible until the end of turn. We can use this to bounce Kogla and then recast him to fight each creature in play until there's no creatures left. Once we're the only one with creatures in play, we can go into the Shaman of the Forgotten Ways. This 3 mana 2/3 can tap for 2 mana of any combination of colors to cast creature spells. It also has Formidable. For 11 mana, each player's life total becomes the number of creatures they control, but we can only use this ability should we control creatures with total power 8 or greater. Kogla, having 7 power, helps us reach this quite easily. And if we are the only ones with creatures in play, opponents' life totals will become 0. To ensure that this combo goes off without having to deal with summoning sickness, we do need haste enablers. To that end, we have Destiny Spinner, a 2-drop 2/3 human that makes creatures and enchantments we control unable to be countered. The more important clause is the activated ability, where we can pay 3 and a green to make a target land we control into an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until the end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments we control. It's still a land. This one will only work as Ashaya is out, as we can then use this on our Shaman of the Forgotten Ways to give it haste, considering it is counted as a forest. We do also have Concordant Crossroads, a 1 mana world enchantment that gives all creatures haste. If we have this out, we can go off even if Ashaya isn't in play. This combo does require we have amassed our infinite mana engine, however. Should this combo line fail or be disrupted, we can pivot to a more combat-centric win, utilizing Finale of Devastation with our infinite mana, making our creatures overwhelmingly huge. Since Oathbreaker starts us off at 20 life, it is much easier to work into a killing of the table at 60 damage than 120 in Commander. We do also have a few card draw engines here, because we need to ensure that we have the gas to keep going, and with the infinite loops we won, we can easily convert those into card draw. Glade Muse plays into our typical play pattern of doing a lot of our gameplay during an opponent's turn. This 2/4 beast costs 2 and 1 green. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it isn't their turn, that player draws a card. See, Vivien allows us to cast our creatures at instant speed, and so our turn can largely be summed up by playing a land and passing. Glade Muse will let us draw a card every time we cast a spell on our opponent's turn, and so as we begin these combo lines and loops, we can easily begin churning through our deck and getting us to our win conditions. Beast Whisperer is also here, being a little bit more straightforward, costing 2 and 2 green for an elf druid. Whenever we cast a creature spell, we draw a card. This works a little bit less symmetrically than the Glade Muse, as opponents cannot draw off our Beast Whisperer like they can with Glade Muse. Now, if by some means we need another backup plan, we do run a very small mill package. Because we can theoretically get infinite untaps and infinite mana, cards like Gyri Sanitarium and Miko Koros, Center of the Sea, both can be used to make opponents draw out their entire deck, and then they would lose upon their next attempt to draw a card. I relegate these to being the last-ditch effort should games need closing or we lose access to our Shaman line. Vivien is a very powerful option for Oathbreaker, and I think that by adapting a cEDH deck into the Oathbreaker format, we're going to be able to get into some very powerful builds. The main thing to note in that piloting this deck is holding off doing things on your turns. Once we get Vivien in play, we can then begin playing our cards on our opponent's turns, giving them less opportunity or space to adapt or respond. The benefit of having so many bounce effects and infinite loops is if in the event the opponent tries to disrupt us or remove one of our threats, we can always bounce that targeted card in order to protect it and then recast it once the removal spell fizzles and then resume our pushing for the win. For now though, that is going to wrap up our look at the Vivien Oathbreaker deck. Let me know what you think of this deck. Would you like to see more Oathbreaker on this channel? I do have a few more decks that I'd love to show you. If you did enjoy this video, likes and shares are of course always welcome and appreciated. If you're part of that 95% that YouTube tells me is watching my videos but not currently subscribed, hit that subscribe button and never miss another video. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you all next time.